In a small, predominantly white town on the edge of the city, there had long been a simmering tension between the local police and the black community. A history of discrimination, profiling, and suspicion had created a culture where even the most routine interactions with law enforcement were fraught with fear. It was late one summer evening when Jamal, a 16-year-old black boy, was walking home from a study session at the local library. His mind was occupied with thoughts of his upcoming high school graduation and what he would do next. Jamal had dreams of becoming an engineer, a dream that seemed both distant and close at the same time. But tonight, those dreams would be put on hold. Jamal's path took him down a quiet street that was frequently patrolled by the local police. As he walked, a police car pulled up alongside him, the headlights blinding him for a moment. The car stopped, and the officer inside, Officer Holt, stepped out. "Hey, boy, what are you doing out here so late?" Officer Holt's tone was dismissive, as if Jamal didn't belong in this neighborhood at all. His eyes scanned Jamal with suspicion. Jamal's heart began to race, and he could feel the weight of his surroundings pressing on him. "I'm just walking home, he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. And what's in that bag?" Officer Holt motioned to the small backpack slung over Jamal's shoulder. "Just some books," Jamal said, trying to stay calm. Holt stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "You know, we've had reports of some suspicious activity in this area." "I'm going to need to check that bag." Jamal's pulse quickened. He'd done nothing wrong, but in a town like this, even existing as a young black man felt like a crime in itself. He tried to stay composed, but wouldn't shake the panic rising in his chest. "I'm not doing anything wrong," Jamal stammered. "I didn't ask if you were doing anything wrong," Officer Holt snapped, his voice growing colder. "I said I'm checking your bag." Before Jamal could protest further, 2 more squad cars pulled up, and more officers emerged. They began surrounding him, their hands resting on their belts. Jamal's world spun, and the voices of the officers felt like echoes in his ears. His mind raced. What is going on? Why is this happening? He felt a hand clamp down on his shoulder, and another officer grabbed his backpack roughly, pulling it from his back. "Stay still," Officer Holt barked. Jamal froze, his heart pounding in his ears as his eyes darted nervously between the officers. Just as they were about to handcuff him, Jamal's voice cracked. "Please, stop." "You don't understand." Officer Holt glared at him. "I understand enough. You people think you can just walk around here like you own the place." Jamal's eyes widened, and his stomach sank. His father's face flashed in his mind. His father, who had always told him to stay calm and never let the world change him. He remembered the many nights his father spent telling him stories about fighting for what's right, about standing tall in the face of adversity, about being proud of his name. He never expected to need that wisdom in a moment like this. But then, just as Holt raised his hand to slap the cuffs on Jamal, a voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Hold it right there." The officers turned in surprise as a man in a suit approached, his face determined. Jamal's heart skipped a beat when he recognized the man. It was his father, Calvin Washington. But this wasn't just any man. This was Calvin Washington, one of the most respected civil rights lawyers in the country. He had worked for decades fighting police brutality and racial injustice. He was a well-known figure in legal circles, frequently seen on national news advocating for justice and equality. Jamal's father was a symbol of hope for many people, and apparently, for these officers, a name they instantly recognized. "Let go of my son." Calvin's voice was firm, almost icy, as he strode forward. Officer Holt hesitated for a moment, clearly recognizing the name. "Mr. Washington, I didn't know it was you." "Your son was acting suspicious? Walking home from a library at night is suspicious now?" Calvin's voice was sharp, cutting through the officer's words. "You're harassing my son because of the color of his skin. You're about to make a very big mistake, officer." Jamal stood frozen, his mouth dry. The moment his father stepped onto the scene, everything shifted. The officers seemed unsure of themselves, their bravado slipping away. Calvin Washington's reputation had earned him respect, even from those who didn't agree with him. But what truly caught them off guard wasn't just who Calvin was, it was who Jamal was. The son of Calvin Washington. The boy they were harassing wasn't just some random kid, he was part of a legacy that they knew could turn the tables in a heartbeat. Jamal could see the panic in the officers' eyes as they began to realize the gravity of the situation. They had crossed a line, and they knew it. Calvin turned to Jamal, his expression softening just a little. "Jamal, it's okay. I'm here," he said, his voice calm but filled with authority. He turned back to the officers. "You'll release my son immediately, and you'll issue an apology." Officer Holt seemed to stumble over his words. We were just doing our job, Mr. Washington." "You weren't doing your job, Holt. You were abusing your power, and I won't let it slide." The officers exchanged nervous glances. Realizing that they couldn't win this fight, they reluctantly released Jamal and stepped back. Calvin turned to his son, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. As they walked away from the scene, Jamal's mind was still reeling. "Dad, I didn't know who to be in that moment," Jamal said, his voice shaking. "I panicked when they were about to arrest me. I didn't know what to do." Calvin smiled gently, his voice calm but firm. "You did what I taught you. You stayed calm, even when it felt impossible. That's what makes us stronger. But remember, Jamal, there's power in the name you carry. It's not just a name, it's a symbol. You're my son, and that means something. They'll always try to label you, to put you in a box, but you carry a history that they can't erase." Jamal felt a sense of peace slowly settling in as they walked home. It wasn't just his father's name that had protected him tonight. It was the truth, the courage, and the legacy of justice that ran deeper than any fear the officers had tried to impose him. Moral, you carry more than just your own identity in this world. You carry the legacy of those who came before you, their struggles, their victories, their wisdom. No matter the fear you face, remember that there's power in your name and in the strength of those who have paved the way for you.